I'm the MD at Focus Point. Thanks for joining me today. What I'd like to do is just show you some of the tricks and tips and tricks of the trade, if you like. My aim is so that by the end of this stream, you will be able to make an informed decision whether or not you wish to try and do it yourself, and I'll be willing to provide you further tips on request. Or you could choose to get someone else to do it for you. Whoever you choose, the first top tip would be make sure that they are a specialist in your niche. I cannot see how a generalist is going to come up with the engineers that you need. Okay, I hear a lot about posting jobs. Now, if I were to post a job, I suppose I might consider Google. I might consider LinkedIn, but also in the back of my mind, I would be counting the cost and remembering that there is no limit on who can apply. So you will get completely mismatched candidates who, are certainly not a civil engineer or structural engineer. The closest they've ever been to being one is standing in the same room as a qualified engineer. So they will suck the life out of you with thousands of those types of applications. To prove my point, what I'm going to do is just share my screen and show you a couple of typical job postings on LinkedIn. Just bear with me. Okay, so if we were to just look at this one, this is a civil engineer posting. I didn't see the company, but there we go, we all know them. All I did was go into the search box of jobs, type in civil engineer in the UK, and obviously the well-known names come up, but just look how many job postings there are. So my first concern there would be is how is your job going to stand out? How are you going to get across what's special about your opening? I'd contend you're not. And this is where you're going to get applicants they're going to upset you. They're going to disappoint you. Very similar story with structural engineers, over 3,600. In fact, that number has gone up since I started the stream. So I just come out of screen share for you. So, the situation is with most directors of consultancies that I've been speaking to is that they have the work. In some cases, they're actually having to turn it away. And we know there's a shortage of engineers. There has been for as long as I can remember. The reasons being not attractive to younger people who don't see the point of going into it. It's not sexy. They don't find the idea attractive. And in fact, there are statistics out there. One, for example, over 19% of the engineers that we're talking about are due to retire by 2026. So, options. You need the engineers. Well, okay, the first thing you should do, in my opinion, is have a look at your own network. Obviously, I know some of the names on this stream. You're going to have sizable networks. And in fact, if you've connected with me, as long as you've not changed your settings, you get to see my network, which I'll show you in a minute, and I get to see yours. So let me just show you my network. And what the point I would get across is that if you were to consider a recruiter or headhunter that is a generalist, then this number here, approaching 13,000, are going to be 13,000 very varied people. Whereas if you're dealing with a niched recruiter, then at least the majority of those are going to be people we want to talk about. And, you know, if they're not, then their friends are. And I, with my assistants, spend a lot of time just going through those networks. And you'll see, if you were to look at tools like Sales Navigator, for example, which I'll show you in a minute, that if I'm connected to an engineer who is spot on matching my brief, then that particular platform will lead me to all of that engineer's friends and colleagues. And of course, a number of them are going to be who we want to speak to. So I'll just quickly share my screen again, just quickly show you Sales Nav. Again, today's not about LinkedIn, but you know, no matter what some others might say to you, LinkedIn is used a great deal. Funny, I should use civil engineer again. Yes, I know they're in demand. So just to give you some idea, I just put in Birmingham and just put in the phrase civil engineer. And so we get a ridiculously high number. So who on earth has enough time to go through 4,500 plus results? Well, you know, the good news is, and again, this isn't a LinkedIn webinar, there are ways of doing it. I certainly don't do it all myself. It would take far too long. I'd never be able to speak to people. But I do have people that are very expert at this, and they produce the lists, you know, for me to speak to, which cuts out a lot of time and comes up with the results, because, you know, they really are much better at it than me. So I think, as I alluded to in the write-up on LinkedIn, if you were to take a 50 grand salary, and if we were to agree that, basically speaking, that they should bring it in double that in fees. So, you know, you are potentially losing over 4K a month in lost revenue. So that you could, one would argue, I certainly would, that is where you're saving your recruitment fees. And without wishing to labour the point too much, if the vacancy's been open for 6 months, a year, even longer, sometimes when I take briefs from clients, then you're losing money. So you decide, is, you know, enough is enough. And again, I am talking about slightly more senior engineers. Let's take the typical brief. 5 years experience, chartered or approaching chartered. Now, if you look in the UK, then the option is to consider what you have to offer. That would make someone sit up and listen. One of my favorite questions is, why would anyone wish to resign and join you? If I just do another quick screen share, the shortage occupation list. Again, there's a little bit of ambiguity about this, to be honest with you, because I've attended a number of briefings, some of them government sponsored, and the term civil engineer is very broad. But also, look, that there are stipulations about salary rates. And recently, I've marketed Hong Kongers, and to be honest with you, the response from people like yourselves was nowhere near what I would get from an engineer that had been in the UK all of their lives. So I'll just come back to the stream. I'll come out of the screen share. Okay, if you decide that you don't have the time to do it, you should be, you know, either running the company or you know, doing taking on or engaging a headhunter is one way of looking at it. And I'm going to share some stuff here. I just know that not all recruiters know this, so I just share it. So in the first case, what I would do is take a brief from you. If you would ever, if you ever want to recap exactly what my process is, it's all on my website. Everything is public there. And again, if I were you, if a recruiter is unable to tell you exactly how they're going to go about recruiting engineers for you, then I'd be concerned, to say the least. Now, the briefs, I've got some example briefs for you which have temporarily got away from me, but let's say here is an example brief. Now, any recruiter that you choose to engage with really should take a very thorough brief. How on earth are they going to get you the right person if they don't really understand what it is that you need? Look for how long they've been doing the job. Who have they recruited for? Above all, look at the recommendations on LinkedIn. They can't be bluffed. Bill Gates has got that sewn up. So, when you see these silly recommendations on websites, Mrs. Smith said that David was absolutely wonderful. Well, yeah, that's not quite as convincing as recommendations on LinkedIn. And of course, whilst you're there, look at the types of people that have recommended the recruiter that you're thinking of. Okay, now I'll just come out of screen share again and here we go, back. So all you need to do is find the engineers that could do the job, contact them, find out the imperfections in their current workplace and provide a solution. Now, the hint is there. From the brief that I've just shown you, I would be asking you questions like, why would someone wish to resign and join you? If you're not the owner of the company, it would be why you joined it, how the management has managed to keep you there, what you find interesting about it. And one of the more reaching questions, I think, is to just ask yourself, or I would ask you, imagine it's 1 year on from the date that I placed that engineer with you. You're walking down the hallway, you're just about to congratulate the person on an excellent first year's work. Just consider what it is that they've done to put you in that frame of mind. And that will enable you to sort of put down some bullet points about what's really important. Now, finding the candidates, to be really honest, it's child's play. I'll do a quick share again. You're unlikely to use an ATS, but for example, and I really hope no sensitive names come up here, but if I was, I don't know, let me just see. So I'm looking at my database again. Mine's just over 20,000 strong. And if you're not aware, it's not possible to have a LinkedIn network of more than about 30,000. What LinkedIn does then is insist that you sign up for another account. Good old Bill Gates again. I use my favorite example of civil engineer. I'm not putting in any locations, but this then would come up with, who I know or who has the phrase civil engineer in their job title. So 176 that I've spoken to recently. More importantly, let's say if you wanted to go to the expense of sales navigator, I'm sure Bill would be pleased, but if we just put in a different location, I don't know, Manchester is certainly very busy at the moment. Mind you, so's Bristol. If we were to put in Manchester, so how many structural engineers? It's going to be thousands where that comes up. 3,000 plus. So then what you're looking at there is who you know, first of all, and then digging down to those that you would like to know. And again, you can break this down to first level connections, second level connections. And as soon as you, again, this is completely random. If anyone's watching from this country, it's just completely random. You can see here, who I share in common with this person, who I can ask for an introduction from, and there are all I need to know. So I mentioned 5 years as an example. There you go. So this guy's got approaching 6 years experience, and that would be a starting point. But please bear in mind, this takes a long time. Okay, I'll just stop the sharing, come back to the stream. Now, when you have that list of candidates from LinkedIn, there is another little dilemma you've got. You will get very few contact details. There are a number of tools available. I'll just quickly show you one. Again, I tried to log into this earlier. It had a problem. But basically, from any list, and it still has a problem, from any list on LinkedIn, it would scrape that list, extract public details. I must stress, any details that I find are publicly available, I'm just using tools to get them. And then, of course, the process begins of reaching out to them. I just come back now to the stream. So decision's always yours. You spend days working as a recruiter, or whether or not you would get a better return on your investment of time by getting someone to do it for you. And again, I promise to share everything today. That will include typical costings, different ways of doing things. I need to prepare you for this if you want to do it yourself. You've got to be tenacious. To give you an example, for me, it is normal to approach a target candidate 7 to 10 times over a 3-week period. That will involve calls early in the day, late in the day, lunch times, at their desk at work, mobile, perfect if I've got it. One thing I've done recently using another piece of software is video messaging. So basically what happens is the candidate gets a message saying, this is, excuse me, I just need to turn that off. They get a message saying, I've recorded this video link just for you. And what they see is me actually looking up and down their LinkedIn profile, explaining who I am, and explaining that I'd like to talk to them about an opportunity that I judge might be stronger than the one that they're currently in. I reassure them, tell them that all conversations would be in the strictest confidence, and I invite them to make an appointment or my diary, or simply pick up the phone. I have a great response from that. The difference is that it's personalized. It's not a blanket email that you'll see some of the high street multiples putting out, or some of those dreadful job, let me just kill that call, dreadful job postings that I put out there. It's almost as bad as saying, staff required. Email campaigns. There are a number of automated email campaigns. It simply speeds up the process. And any of you watching this, if you've responded to any of the campaigns where I'm alerting you of available candidates, those follow-ups stop, or at least should do, and apologies if you ever got a repeat, they should stop. Well, that same process is used for recruiting candidates on your behalf. So how to choose a headhunter, and again, I will move on to costs, I promise you that. The first thing, as I've said, got to be a specialist. I have the greatest of respect for a young person that has just joined Hayes on day one. I'm sure they'll be full of enthusiasm, but they're going to be a generalist, and they won't have a large network of the relevant people. Look at their profile and ask them, have they recruited the type of engineers that you want before? They should be able to tell you that straight off, no problem at all. As I said, look for solid recommendations from preferably directors, managing directors, owners at similar companies to yours. Ask direct and reaching questions about their process, and have they made it public? If not, why not? Well, one reason is because all they're going to do is tell you, yeah, I'll make you aware. They'll have a look at the job boards and realize that the candidates are not there. We may have people losing their jobs, but they're not the people you want. Okay, so I didn't show you my weekly report. So any headhunter worth their salt should be able to show you their weekly reports, basically updating you on the candidates that they've spoken to and that what those have said, if they declined, why. So, this would be an example. I've taken out the names because it is completely random. But generally, so you get this weekly report. Some headhunters would do it fortnightly. It's just my process to give it to you weekly. And of course, then if there's any names in there that and you know they're not right, just tell me or whoever you're using. Okay, back to the stream. Okay, so charges, and again, we're coming up to sort of 25, 30 minutes. I didn't want it to go much longer than that. Normal charges. Okay, so back in the day, a very typical one would be 1/3 of the fee up front, 1/3 on interviewing, 1/3 when the candidate starts. Fine. And if you're happy with that, I think most, including me, would be happy with that. Basically, from this side of the desk, what I'm looking for is that this is a solid job order. My calls are going to be returned. My emails are going to be returned, so that when I'm working late at night or early in the morning and, grinding away and, not getting anywhere, I know that when I do get a candidate and I do make the submission, that I'm going to get, prompt feedback. Otherwise, we're just going to lose the candidate anyway. Everything is wasted. Okay. Also, here we go. I know as well, only yesterday I was approached by a client, a small company, could you maybe do it for between 5 and 10%? Well, sorry, no. I've been doing recruitment for approaching 20 years, and it started at 15% there. Again, at the risk of sounding slightly aloof, 15% recruiter, you're going to get a 15% type response back to candidates that are not a particular match, and the process will be nothing like what you've got, what I've explained, actually. More than one way things that can be done. For example, if you said to me that you had 5 openings and they were all openings that I had filled before or genuinely thought that I could based on what you've seen today, then we could talk about a monthly subscription. One option I offered to a client yesterday was £500 a month for 5 openings. And my fee then would drop to around 22%. There's always going to be some leeway. We're not rigid here. And with those subscriptions, that is the skin in the game, if you like. I wish I had a £20 note for every client that says, "Oh, just tell me if you find this candidate." Well, great, of course, but only when I've finished dealing, working for my retained clients. Hopefully it makes sense. I'd say you're getting what you want. I get what I want. What I'd also say is that there used to be this, well, there still are, these, 1 day past 12 weeks and then you don't get any refund at all. That's all old hat. Okay, depending on how senior the opportunity is, or sorry, how senior the role is, I'd be giving you up to 12 months free replacement guarantee. So let's say the candidate manages to dupe you and me. You're 3 months in and you discover something horrible about them, and they've got to go. Well, life happens. This can happen. I'm going to say to you, I'm going to start all over again. No further payment required. So, just to finish off, as we come up to the 30-minute point, choose your headhunter carefully. Ask reaching questions. Oh, sorry, I wasn't clear. On the standard model, for say you need an associate director civil engineer, typical for me, the fee would be around mid 20%, 24 to 26%, looking normally for a 3 to 5K deposit. That deposit would be credited on the invoice for the placement. So I agree that 24 to 26% sounds high. And I'd add, I'm rarely the cheapest at the front end, but that's what I mean. The front end, you're going to get the person that you want, and there's quite a bit of proof of that on my LinkedIn profile. So, whoever you choose, take the time just to build a little bit of rapport, get to know the person. This will be repaid. Ask the questions that I mentioned. Make sure you've got someone who knows what they're talking about. Also, I think it's important to say that once, in my case, if I have headhunted for you and there was a commercial agreement between us, even when that commercial agreement ends, you become graded what I call a grade A client. I showed you my system here. I happen to use Zoho, but I always look at my grade A clients every day. So civil engineering contractor says, David, I'm looking to move. I look at my grade A's. They've worked, with me before, and they're the first ones to know. I hope that you've found this useful. I do intend to do more of these. I'd welcome any questions. Again, you're going to get straightforward answers from me. The process works. It's been proved many times. My details are on my profile, but my number 07931 306639, and all the details on my website. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see and speak with you all again soon. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.